Warning: the following video contains images and spoken word that may be too intense for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
The wilderness was a vast, sprawling ocean of green, stretching far beyond what the eye could see. Ranger Tim Caldwell sat in the fire lookout, the last rays of the setting sun casting long shadows through the forest below. He had been stationed here for the past 3 months, miles away from civilization, his only company, the whispering pines and the occasional call of a distant owl. Tim enjoyed the solitude. He had taken this post willingly, happy to spend his time reading, sketching, and keeping a vigilant eye out for wildfires. In a few months, they will be shutting down the watchtower, replaced by electronic instruments and satellite surveillance. Tim was glancing over the treetops with his binoculars, the curved glass opening the forest canopy to him. He will miss this assignment, and the slight feeling of regret in his stomach was soon replaced by feelings of curiosity and puzzlement. Tim noticed some flashing lights flickering in the distance. He adjusted his binoculars, tracking the light. It moved erratically, zigzagging, hovering, then shooting straight up into the sky before plunging back down. His gut twisted. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a drone. It was something else. Tim reached for his radio, but before he could call in the sighting, the light shot off over the ridge and disappeared. He exhaled, his heart pounding. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was just tired. But something deep inside him knew better. Tim spoke into his radio. Tower 5 to Tower 3. I am going to get some sleep for a few hours. Can you have the watch until I get back? No problem, Tim. Have a good sleep. The forest will be here for you when you get back. The radio crackled back at him. Determined to shake it off, he climbed down the ladder of the fire tower and made his way back to his cabin, a small wooden structure nestled within the trees, about a half-mile from the tower. As he approached, he noticed the eeriness in the air. The forest had gone silent. No crickets, no rustling leaves, nothing, just the sound of his own breathing. Tim unlocked the cabin door and stepped inside, flicking on the single lantern that illuminated the space. He set his rifle near the bed, standard issue for protection against bears and mountain lions. As he started to remove his boots, he heard a strange buzzing sound, like electricity. It was right above the cabin. Tim stood up and opened the door. He looked out and saw nothing. He walked out into the clearing in front of the cabin and looked up. Nothing. What is going on here? Tim wondered to himself. Tim debated on calling the ranger station on the other side of the ridge. Maybe they saw the lights too. But he quickly changed his mind. Those guys would tease him mercilessly if he did. Tim entered the cabin and prepared for bed. He would be awake again in a couple of hours to do another shift. Tim crawled back in his bed and turned the lamp back down. Then suddenly the buzzing sound came again, this time from the cabin door. Tim shot up and grabbed his rifle. Tim raised the rifle, aiming at the door. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady despite the growing panic clawing at his chest. No answer. The door handle started to move, and the sound of the lock opening and the latch started moving. Tim was now terrified, his rifle shaking in his hands. "Who's there? Don't come in here, I'm armed," Tim yelled at the door. Then, the worst sound of all, a long, slow creak as the door began to open on its own. Tim fired. The gunshot echoed through the cabin, deafening him to silence. The door banged against the wall, revealing nothing but darkness beyond the threshold. Shaking, he backed toward the rear exit. That's when he saw them. Silhouetted against the moonlight stood 3 figures, tall and thin with elongated limbs and smooth, featureless faces. Their skin shimmered, as if not quite solid, like rippling water in the moonlight. The figures looked at each other, and Tim heard some clicking and grunting sounds, like they were talking to each other. Tim bolted. He didn't think, didn't hesitate. He just ran. He crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping his face, his boots pounding against the forest floor. Behind him, he heard movement. Something fast, something inhumanly agile. The aliens were chasing him. He gasped for air, pushing himself harder. His lungs burned, but he couldn't stop. The creatures didn't make a sound. No heavy footsteps, no panting breaths. Just the rustling of leaves and the occasional whisper of movement, always just behind him. Tim tripped and fell over a fallen tree. He thought for sure they had him. But when he looked up, all he saw was laser beams moving back and forth over his head. They were still looking for him. Tim waiting until the beams moved away from where he was laying. Then he got up and ran again, as fast as he could. He heard the clicking and grunting again. They were close now. Up ahead, a rocky outcrop loomed. He knew these woods well. There was a small cave just beyond that rise. If he could reach it, he might have a chance. With the last of his strength, he hurled himself up the incline, scrambling over the rocks and into the cave's entrance. He pressed himself into the darkness, his back against the damp stone, rifle gripped tightly in his shaking hands. He heard them outside the cave. The aliens continued with their clicking and grunting. Tim held the rifle pointed at the entrance. The moment he saw one, he would let them have it. The clicking slowed and then stopped. Tim didn't want to take any chances. He didn't move. The forest outside remained eerily still. Minutes passed. Tim barely breathed, sweat cooling on his skin. Then, a shadow shifted at the cave's mouth. He clutched the rifle, ready to fire, but no figure stepped inside. Instead, a strange humming noise filled the air, vibrating deep in his chest. A blinding flash of light illuminated the trees outside, casting long, unnatural shadows. And then, just as suddenly, it was gone. Silence returned. Tim waited until dawn before daring to step out of the cave. The forest was the same as before, peaceful, untouched. Had it really happened? Or had he imagined it? No. He knew what he had seen. And he knew he had to get out of these woods. Without looking back, he made his way toward the ranger station, leaving the remote cabin behind. Whatever had visited him that night, whatever had chased him through the trees, he prayed he would never see it again. Where once Tim was mourning his departure from the woods, now he found himself eager to escape it.